Sahana vavatu, Sahano bhunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Last session, I really thought about what Ludwig said because he made an extremely important point, which is the difference between whether someone stays in their head and for how long, right? And whether they are living it, okay? Living it, feeling it, emoting it, expressing it, talking it, singing it, dancing it. The question is, what is that ingredient that one needs to drop it? To drop it and make it whole, to make it true, to make it a reality. And this was such a lovely thing you brought up. And I was not satisfied with my answer because while I was answering, I thought there's something's missing. So what Nima has taught me is, while we were doing the Bhagavad Gita course, you have to understand the Gita uses two kinds of languages. The first language is what we call cognitive language, intellectual language. The second language is what we call emotional language. Now, cognitive language is, just listen and see how your experience is. When I say to you, Ishvara is the material and the maker of the universe. Ishvara is the material and the maker of the universe. And then I say to you, I am Brahman. Or I am consciousness. Just to feel that, okay? These are all facts. These are facts. But it's more than just the facts. Or I wrote some statements down. Ishvara is manifesting as the infallible order. It's a nice statement. It's a fact. Ishvara is manifesting as the infallible order. That's all. What kind of language? What kind of language do you think it is? Cognitive language. Is there anything right or wrong about it? No. It's just a cognitive. It's touching your cognition, your intellect, your buddhi. Fair. But is that all you're made of? So if I'm only targeting one aspect of myself, then how can I be complete? How can I feel like a complete human being? Therefore, we need to bring in emotional language. And what is emotional language? It is something whereby you take a statement, a fact, and you convert it in such a manner that it touches you. It touches you deeply. It doesn't touch someone else, but it touches you. So the question is, what kind of language is this? Well, suppose I say to you, Ishvara is my mom and dad. Ishvara is my child. Notice how that works on you.
Poetic.
Yeah, poetic. It has a softness to it. It just penetrates a different aspect of yourself. It's also a fact. It's keeping with the knowledge. Or I say to you, Ishvara is not away from me. Ishvara is not away from me. Slightly different. You're making it personal. Or you say to yourself, I am fullness, or I am fulfilled. Rather than a consciousness, I am fulfilled. Or you say to yourself, I trust Ishvara. I trust Ishvara. Or you say, the world is fair. The world is fair. The world simply gives me whatever I deserve. The world is fair. It's always been fair. I offer my actions to the altar of Ishvara. Cognitive emotional language. And what I have noticed is those who have both there's a difference you can pick out. You can pick out that difference from those who just operate from the intellectual aspect. This is crucial. We need to make these words our own. If we don't make them our own, they're someone else's words. And even if they're right and true and scripturally valid, if they're not your words, then they're not, the knowledge is not completely integrated. See? So if because someone asked in our class, right, when I was listening, it was the exact same question. You know, I've been listening to this for years and years and years, but it's just like I'm not feeling it. You know, it's just in my head. You know, I know this very well. I know the facts. I know who I am. But it's like there's something, right? It's trying to express something and can't find the right words to express it. And no one could quite pick out in our class, what was the issue. Even Nima had to think about it. And when she brought this on, this was like a revelation for all of us. And it was very clear now, what is it that makes an integral human being? What makes you complete, truly complete, at the intellectual and emotional level? That is using both languages. For men, for example, men like, engineers and programmers, and, we have like sometimes analytical minds, right? And we kind of, talk in that language. So this is very important for men also. Very important for men. It was very important for me too. And the moment I discovered this, the whole vision changed. It just sunk. Mellow, gentle. Okay? Emotional language needs to be incorporated into one's words, into one's thoughts. This is what we mean by devotion, having devotion for Ishvara. And devotion is a very personal practice. It's customized according to what touches you, not what the teacher said. It's still keeping with the knowledge, but it's your words. It's infused with your personal, right, flavor. So that was from the last session. And then we have spoken about Maya. See, now we're going back to intellect. Okay. It's kind of like a constant switch, right? So now verse 16 or 15 and 16 talked about the veiling power of Maya, okay? So verse 17 wants to just show how this manifests at the level of the individual. Okay, so verse 17, Asya jivatvam aropat sakshini api avabhasate avrtau tu vinashtayam bhede bhate apa yati tat. Going back to Avarana Shakti, okay, just means a cover. A cover means, for example, right, I cover this, right? So now you need to remove it through knowledge. So because of this power of Avarana Shakti, what happens is this sakshi, right, the drk, pervades a subtle body. Not knowing any better because you're covered, what happens is I become the body and the mind. Okay? I take myself as the body and the mind. This is how everyone gets born, with this era. And therefore, awareness, the reality, drk, as though becomes covered. As though, not actually, because even if you say, I don't know who I am, right? There's awareness of that fact. So you actually are still in touch with the reality. Okay? So, and then we have a metaphor, and then we say, see, just like, for example, if you have a wave whose focus is on other waves, okay? And so what happens is, because all its life, it's always focusing on other waves, this wave, this wave, talking about waves, giving reality to waves, right? Pleasing waves, marrying waves, producing new waves, right? All its life is like this. So what happens is, it slowly starts to have a certain orientation that all there is here are waves, waveforms. And so it completely forgets about that there are two more realities, and that is the ocean and the water, okay? And therefore, the question is, why has it forgotten? Well, not that it's forgotten, it never knew in the first place. It's not like once upon a time, the wave knew its nature and then it forgot its nature and now it has to remember. There was never a time when the wave knew who it was. So the water becomes as though covered because of this focus on the waves. But is it actually covered? No, because the entirety of the wave is nothing but the water, okay? So what happens, the reason this happens is because this wave, as though superimposes its attributes onto the water. And therefore, it seems like, right, the water is now the wave, right? The reality is the person. This is how it is. But at the same time, the entire ocean does the exact same thing. It as though superimposes itself over the water. In fact, when you're flying and you look down onto the you see this? Onto the ocean, who looks down and says, oh, look, there's water? You see? So even at the level of the entire, we superimpose that also, right? Or it is as though superimposed over the reality. Okay? So this is because of Maya Upadi. Okay? Now, what is Upadi? Upadi is that which makes something appear different without actually changing it. Okay? A very nice example is, for like there's a moon and it's shining on the surface of the water, and it's ripply, and that rippliness is making that moon ripply. So that rippliness is Upadi. It's as though making the moon ripply. But is the moon actually ripply? No. So that rippliness is what we call Upadi. It as though makes something else appear what it's not. Okay? Moon is perfectly fine. It's just shining, resting. But from this standpoint, it seems like it's something different. Okay? Another example of Upadi is when you put a spoon inside water, and then there's a bend, right? So in that case, the water, in this case, not in this example, is the Upadi. It makes the spoon as though bent. Now, you apply this to the entire universe, and we call that Maya Upadi. So what does now Maya Upadi do? When it's projected, it makes consciousness as though appear like Diderik, right? Appear like Mina, appear like Mikey, appear like Andre, appear like mountain, appear like cloud, appear like sun, wind, heart, the whole thing. Appear like time, appear like space. And therefore, when we're talking about these things, right, we're giving them reality. It's like giving reality to that ripply moon. And you say the moon is ripply, the spoon is bent, but none of that is true, okay? Yes, hallelujah. The orientation to give realities a form is so strong that by the time you hear I am awareness, what does the mind do? It even turns that into a picture in the mind, turns it into an imagination, because it's been doing it all its life. So when it hears about the final reality, it can't help itself. It just goes, this huge awareness. But where is this thought happening? It's happening inside what? The I sense, What Vedanta is showing you that awareness is not any one particular knowing. For example, sad knowing, imaginative knowing, right? When you imagine, you know about that, right? You know about your imagination. Gloomy knowing, sad knowing, etc. knowing. Awareness is not any one particular knowing, but that because of which all of the knowings are known. Does this make sense? Because of which the sad knowing is known. The tired knowing is known. Okay? That's all your I sense does. It knows. Okay? In fact, in Vedanta, we say when the subtle body grows in consciousness, that subtle body becomes a knower. Why does it become a knower? Because it's pervaded by consciousness. And what kind of a knower? That knower is called the I sense. Therefore, I know that I am like this. I know that I am like that. Now, what is awareness? Who are you in reference to this mechanism? I am that because of which all of the knowings, all of the changes of these different knowings, sad knowing, gloomy knowing, happy knowing, educated knowing, ignorant knowing, you're the awareness because of which all of the knowings are known. The invariable presence. But this is covered because of Avarana Shakti. Therefore, we bring in the teaching and we just simply point the reality how it is. Suppose you go to a store and you say, I want to buy a wooden box. Okay, we will give you a wooden box. So look at this. The box is like a noun, right? And the wooden is an adjective. But you say, no, give me a wooden box. Okay, I'll give you a wooden box. But in reality, that box has no reality apart from the wood. So if you were really sane, you would go to the storekeeper and say, I would like a boxy wood. Now, please go to a store owner and say, I would like boxy wood. They will think you're cuckoo. But you're actually more right than those who say, I would like a wooden box. And this is so normal in our language that it's like, hey, you're my brother. Yeah, thank you for talking my language. But you're just reinforcing this phenomena, how we reverse the relationship, how the wood becomes, in this case, what? We have the noun, we have, which one is upadi, upahita? Help me out here. The wood in this case, if you say wooden, would be the upadi, yeah, and the box would be upahita, right? But actually, it's boxy wood. So box would be upadi, and wood would be upahita, right? So that's the right relationship. Or we say something like moonlight. Does the moon really have any light? No, it's borrowing its light. And yet, it's completely normal to speak like this. The sun is rising. It's not like that, is it? Right? Look at the blue sky. Is the sky really blue? No, it's not. It's just a play of colors, okay? So like this, we take these phenomena and we treat them as normal. And we all kind of develop friends because we all speak this wooden box language. The moment someone comes in and says boxy wood, you're the weird one out. That's why this journey isn't so popular. Yeah. So what the verse just wants to point out is that, any experience is just, right, upadi. Right? Any experience about anything, it's a product of what we call karma. Karma just means past causes. So I've done something before to earn this feeling. Okay? So when it comes to moksha, there's no question of experience because that means I've done something now, right? And therefore I'm experiencing it, right, in the future. But moksha means I understand myself as the limitless one. And no amount of limited action plus limited action is going to give you limitlessness because every limited action gives you limited results. So limited result plus limited result plus limited result, how many limitations do I have to add up to get limitlessness? It's a mathematical fallacy, right? Therefore, when it comes to moksha, it's just what we call praptasya prapti. It means discovering that which is already true. The wave is discovering the fact that the ocean and the water is already true. The wave is not doing anything to produce the water. It's not doing one thing. It's just analyzing its experience and recognizing, wow, how could have I missed this? Well, you missed this because, Avarana Shakti was there and everyone's under the spell of Avarana Shakti, therefore no one told you. That's why we missed it. But that's okay, because eventually, through Ishwara's grace, you come to the teaching and you knock off this ignorance, and that solves the problem. Therefore, the whole journey is Avarana has to go. And when Avarana goes, what happens? The self takes center stage. In fact, the self was always taking center stage, wasn't it? Imagine like an audience, an audience of people sitting down in a what do they call it? A cinema. And on the front is the self, right? And they're like, oh, this is boring, you know. They're boring. Let me just kind of jump over. Ooh, who's over there? There's a nice little girl over there, right? A nice man over there. Let me just jump over there and have a conversation with them. And so it's okay, because I know this is eternal, right? The show is going on eternally. I'll get back to you later. And then you start jumping from seat to seat, playing around, and have a little party in the corner, right? And it's just a big show. But every once in a while, you kind of like take a little peek. The self is still there. The self is still there. And eventually, when you've talked to every single person in the audience, you discovered, hey, there's nothing really here for me. And then eventually you go, okay, nothing. Okay, I have no choice but to look straight. And this is how it is. When the person is so tired of looking, listening to this, meditating on this, having experiences left and right, they go, okay, they have no choice but to start to attend to the teaching, and Ishvara pulls you in that direction. That's called Ishvara's grace. And avarana goes. And when it goes, you've solved the beginningless problem. What then? Well, as Krishna told to Arjuna, know who you are. 220, Atma is that which is unborn, doesn't die, doesn't get wet, doesn't get blown, doesn't get contaminated, that which accommodates everything. Knowing this, go and do your duty. In other words, the duty doesn't change because you cannot not act. You're always acting. And how act? In what way? In that way that does not oppose dharma. And that is all the individual has to do in this life. Recognize the reality. That means remove avarana shakti. Having removed that, I do my little part. My little part. It's not grandiose. It's not big. My little part. And then kindly leave this place. Thank it for serving me in the best manner possible. I can gladly leave this place. This is the journey of how this happens from time immemorial to finding the teaching. Okay, so simply before, let's do a little before and after. Before, the form was given reality. The content of that form was missed. After, the content is the reality and form is incidental, an incidental projection of Maya Upadhi. As I said in the session already, were Maya Upadhi not existent, we would have no problems. But it does exist, which is okay, can't do anything about it, and therefore we have to go through this journey. And we are given a chance to remove avarana shakti. What about the other people who are yet to come to this teaching? I'm not Ishvara. I can't even take care of this body and this mind, let alone other people. Therefore, other people are not our concern. Right? Their own journey will eventually come to the teaching, and also the avarana will be removed. What about your family, who you want to save? Yeah, now it's a different thing, right?
Listen.
Yeah, exactly, right? There's a patience, there's a gentleness. You understand that every jiva that is born, including in your own family, is actually just a different person. You've introduced a brand new jiva into this world, and they have their own path. They have their own journey. And that journey, they may get exposed to Vedanta, if you're into Vedanta yourself, and they will say a few things about it. Will they pursue that further? This is beyond your control. In fact, the more I try to push it, the more I turn them off. We use reverse psychology. No. This is great, but don't touch it. This is great stuff, but don't touch it. This is not for you. So I've just covered verse 17 to 19. It's saying more or less the same thing. Verse 20, Asti bhati priyam rupam nama cheti amsha panchakam adya trayam brahma rupam jagat rupam tataha dvayam. Everything in creation has 5 aspects to it. The first one is asti. So when you say asti, just means something exists. And we already kind of did some logic with this. For example, we said atom exists, molecule exists, fiber exists, thought exists, memory exists, concern exists, ignorance exists, knowledge exists. So look at this. No matter what I say, it's always followed by existence. So therefore, everything equally enjoys existence. What kind of existence is this? It is one which obtains in 3 periods of time. Because I could have said the same statement yesterday. The only things that I would have said would be different. For example, at the age of dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus exists, Velociraptor exists, clouds exist, and then we move into the 1500s. Black Plague exists, chickenpox exists, and then we move into 1800s, and then we have Thomas Edison exists, maybe 1900s, Einstein exists today, right? You get the idea. So everything enjoys existence, but the only thing that's going to change is the name that you kind of impute onto this existence. Therefore, time itself is going to impute various things onto existence. And not only things, but also time is imputed onto existence. Because time exists. Time is. Therefore, even time enjoys the exact same existence as does anything else that is obtaining in time. But what about nothing? Shunya exists. You understand? Shunya exists. That's why you're pointing it out. In fact, the fact that there is shunya implies there's a knower of shunya. Therefore, the knower exists. Some people say reality is nothing. Oh, really? If reality is nothing, then who knows that reality is nothing? That which is other than the concept of nothing. Okay, so reality is not nothing. Either way, whatever obtains exists. The second is bhati. So what this means is that anything that exists is revealed to me. Now, what he wants to show is that both existence and bhati, in this case, bhati just means consciousness. Now, you're going to say, why do they say asti when we usually say sat? Why do we say bhati when we usually say chit? Again, because if you keep on saying the same words, it's going to get quite monotonous. That's why they use new words to help you out, look at reality differently. So if I say asti, it exists. When I say bhati, it means not only it exists, but it reveals itself to me. Now, what this means is consciousness and existence, it's not like they're two different things. Because we often say, consciousness, existence, they're two different. No, they're not two different. They're just the same reality from a different standpoint, understood from a different standpoint. So if I say the entire universe is made out of existence, it's exactly the same as saying the entire universe is made out of consciousness. So now look at this. I'm going to throw in some some concerns here, because it's very easy to say that the sentient being enjoys consciousness. Yeah? Sentient being enjoys consciousness. So the sentient being is called the pramata. Pramata. So pramata means when the subtle body grows in consciousness, that subtle body is pervaded by consciousness, okay? And that becomes the knower with the sense organs. Therefore, they're able to know about the data that is being received through the sense organs, and they're able to process that data. That one who knows is called the ahamkara or the pramata. Now, what's the relationship between the pramata, in other words, the ahamkara, and awareness? We got two examples. Which one do you like? The relationship between the ahamkara, the ego, and the awareness is exactly like the relationship between the pot and the clay. The pot can grow, the pot can feel broken. My heart is broken in that sense. The pot can feel be in a different shape and size. Suppose I created this pot in such a pleasing manner that you can't take your eyes off it. Right? So I designed some form, I sculpt some really pleasing form that's meaningful to you. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. but it's still clay. And then the next day, this pot is like the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life, right? Terrible to look at. It's still clay. You see this? The relationship between the knower and the awareness is like between this pot and clay, okay? And that's why we say awareness is not any one particular knowing, like knowing, big knowing, small knowing, elevated knowing, beautiful knowing, small knowing, but that because of which all knowings are known. This one is known, this one is known. Next day, this one is known, next day, not next day, but more like next moment, because that's how your eye sense is, okay? So consciousness manifests as the eye sense. So it's quite easy to recognize consciousness in a person, isn't it? Or even an animal, or an insect. But what about when we say an insentient object, like a rock? Like, how do I see? I mean, I do see its existence because the rock is. And then I understand this model. We say, well, you have to have a subtle body, and that can also reflect the consciousness. A rock can only reflect existence, but a subtle body can also reflect consciousness. Well, actually, that rock also enjoys consciousness. And how do you think this is so? Because if everything is consciousness, then that rock has to enjoy consciousness. How do you think this is so? So I'll ask a question. How do you have particles combine themselves in such a way that when they do, right, their permutations and combinations, they keep on building and building and building and building to the point where they design something that is functional in the universe and has a relationship to something else? How do those particles arrange themselves in such a manner as to create a plant? Or let's take, for example, a seed. Or, a seed, right? Constantly arranging themselves, arranging, and you have a whole tree. How does this happen? Because, Intelligence. So you have to bring the intervening factor of all knowledge and all power. Because if I look into that seed, I can start looking from the bark or from the seed. I can't find the final building block. I really can't under a microscope. Is this much clear? We're just talking basic science. If you zoom in, you can't find a seed. And yet in that seed, there's an entire blueprint to give a complex life form of a tree that knows exactly how deep the roots should go, how far the tree should grow up, towards what direction the tree should face, that is towards the sun, of course, how far should the branches spread out, right? And how round and what's the shape of that tree? How is it going to respond to the weather, to the seasons? The whole blueprint is inside that seed. And yet when I look inside that seed, I can't find a final building block under a microscope. But what I can find is the intelligence that's going to turn that seed into a complex world of its own. And what I can find is the particles that make that seed up at every level. They're arranging themselves intelligently as to keep on creating a seed, the stamen, the first kind of little twig, whatever branch, and then bark, and then leaves, and then photosynthesis, and then the process to convert the carbon dioxide into oxygen. So much intelligence in one simple seed that if I crush in my hand, it's just dust. Same thing with a rock. Because if you look into a rock, you can't find the final building block. But you can find silica, you can find atoms, and those atoms arrange themselves in such a way as to create silica and not granite or not crystal. So I can't find the final building block, but what I can find at every level, from the smallest to the largest, is the intelligence. So while I see the rock Actually, it's nothing but intelligence manifesting as that rock. In that sense, the rock is also consciousness, because you cannot think of intelligence without it being in the presence of consciousness. It's inseparable, because it's like it's being in a coma. You got all of the intelligence in the world, and yet there's no consciousness to give it light. Same thing for Ishvara. It cannot put things together unless it's in the presence of a conscious being, in the presence of consciousness. Therefore, they are inseparable. And what's the relationship between intelligence and awareness? Satya Mithya. Therefore, the intelligence has no existence without awareness. Awareness stands independent. Without awareness, there can be no intelligence doing what it does, from the smallest to the largest, to create that rock. Satya Mithya relationship. Therefore, consciousness makes up your eye sense, the relationship being between the clay and the pot. Consciousness makes up the rock. How do we do this? You have to apply inquiry. You see, it's a different kind of inquiry. You have to look into it, the arranging principle. In that sense, intelligence. And also, pramata, prameya, and pramana. Pramana means, for example, if I show you this cup, has this cup actually entered inside your brain? Is it actually physically inside your brain? No. But what's happening is, by the help of our light, right, it's just bouncing off photons, right, back into your eyes right now. That's how we see. This is just science. And when it does, it enters the brain, enters the retina, it enters the brain. And because the brain and the mind are always communicating, it sends that data into the mind. And in the mind, this is now obtaining in your mind. Are you aware of this? So what's the content of this cup actually?
Mind stuff.
And mind stuff has no reality apart from?
Awareness.
Because mind stuff is, and you can never separate is from awareness. Pramata, prameya, objects, and pramana, that which is a vritti. This is called a cup vritti, a cup thought. So vritti actually vritti doesn't quite mean thought, it means a mental mode. In fact, what Diderich said, mind stuff, that stuff is quite closer than thought, because vritti means the mental mode, okay? So the mental mode in my mind of cup is nothing but the content of it is awareness. Now suppose, let's extend this inquiry. Suppose I show you half of a cup like this. You still have this information in your mind, right? There's consciousness of this thing, for sure. But do you have full knowledge of this cup? No. So what do I have to do? I have to show you just a little bit more. Now, look how this mind stuff has evolved, because I've shown you another standpoint of this object. So your vritti has now become bigger, it's become more complete. And now I show you a little bit more. And you go, okay, it's quite there, but it's not quite complete. So I have to keep exposing you through the course of time for the entire object to be recognized, for all points of views to be recognized. Until then, if I just show you this, what's the natural assumption? Yep, I've seen the cup. Have you really seen the cup? No, because if you're looking at the cup from this standpoint, if you're smart enough, you will say, I have not seen the cup, I've only seen one standpoint of the cup. Show me the other standpoint. Now I've seen much more of the cup. Now, assuming you have seen enough, then your mental vritti has now matched the exact object. Now, when it comes to knowledge, it's even more intricate, because knowledge is just, it's not a matter of just showing you this object, is it? Knowledge has subtleties, it's got nuances. Therefore, when it comes to knowledge, especially Advaita Vedanta, you can now see why repeated listening is required. Because every single time we listen, we hear just one more standpoint from that knowledge, while we also have to deal with all of the prior notions which are manipulating it and distorting it in its own ancient ways. Therefore, when you come and expose yourself again, then you help to solidify this new perspective and therefore lessen the impact of that prior ancient notion. So asti, it exists, bhati, it's revealed, and priya. Now priya, it's a very nice word, priya. Usually we will say ananda. In this case, they use priya. Now you have to think here, because if I just take the literal Sanskrit word for priya, oh, dear. Okay, cool. So this is fine, and it has its place. But let me start with the implied, the lakshyartha. The lakshyartha of priya means it is one without a second. It is full, it is limitless. This is the implied meaning. That means it has no second. It is one of itself. It has no competition. It is all there is. Therefore, what kind of a existence awareness is it? It is Advaita. It is one without a second. That means nothing is outside it. There's no second existence, second awareness somewhere. It is one existence, one awareness, which is limitless. This is the lakshyartha of priya. The vachyartha, the direct meaning, is when we say dear, which is a very nice thing, because is it not true that anything that exists for one person or the other, it's going to hold a value of being dear? It may not hold a value. For example, I may love this, just like I showed this example, which one was more dear to you, right? And you said this one was more dear. So some people, this example will be more dear. So why are things dear to us, right? Why, and what is the connection between things being dear and my fullness, my limitlessness? And this will be answered in a moment. The second thing I want to say is, what is unreal? Because asti, bhati, and priya is the absolute reality. So naturally, since this is a viveka discrimination between what? Real and the unreal. So the question comes then, what is that which is unreal? And when I say unreal, I'm talking about what is mithya, because that's where the confusion is. We don't know, satya or mithya. So whatever you hear, whatever you see, whatever is felt, whatever is experienced, whatever is known, that is unreal. Whatever epiphany you have, whatever like major insight you have, sorry to say, unreal. Because it was not there before, therefore it depends on time. But we just said even time is. Therefore even time depends on satyam, depends on the truth. So any revelation, any experience obtains in time. I'm going to be enlightened tomorrow. You see this? This is tomorrow, this is time. But time itself has a dependent reality on consciousness. Therefore, no matter what happens tomorrow, it's irrelevant. In one short statement, whatever is revealed to you. You see this? Doubt is revealed to whom? In the presence of that one in whom there's a doubt. Therefore, doubt is unreal. Insight. I got it. Now I really got it. Revealed. Therefore, unreal. What do the scientists do? What is their area of speciality? They reveal things in the universe. The whole science book is nothing but revelation after revelation after revelation after revelation. All unreal. And when is it revealed? It's revealed in time. But even time is revealed to that one to whom time is revealed. You don't have to specify who that one is, because the point is, time is revealed to you. Is it not? Consciousness is the invariable presence in whom time gets revealed. And what is that which is revealed? It is a manifestation of all knowledge, all power, which is Maya Upadhi, which has no existence apart from the Drg And that Drg is that in whose presence Maya Upadhi, including time, including space, is revealed. So let's talk about Priyam. What's the connection between happiness and limitlessness? Because I said Priyam, two definitions. The first one was that which is without a second, limitless. And the second definition was what's dear. Now, whatever is dear means it makes you happy, right? That's what it really means. So the next question comes is, what's the connection or the relationship between happiness and limitlessness? Okay? So look at this. What does every person want? Happiness, so that they can have freedom from sense of limitation. That's the real underlying cause for people looking for things. I don't want to be limited with the idea that there is something for me without which I can't live. I want to get rid of that idea. Therefore, I want to pursue freedom from limitation. Just like when a mosquito bites you, first thing you want to do is get rid of it. Because you know it doesn't belong to me, the body. Get rid of it. When there's a desire, what do? Fulfill that desire. Why? Because I want to be free from the pangs of the desire. But suppose I say to you now, suppose I say to you, how many people want limitlessness? Right? Hey, do you want limitlessness? It's like, huh? Right? It's kind of, what kind of a word is that, you know? It's kind of a funny word. But if I say to you, do you want happiness? Instantly, everyone connects to that word. Therefore, the rishis have thought of this. Because if I show you the reality, which is asti and bhati or sat and chit, and I say it is limitless, it's like, oh, okay, it's not very inspiring. I don't want to pursue it. But if I say, Priya is equated to Ananda.
Accepting Ananda, and this is asti bhati Priyam. So Ananda, would you define it as limitless? Because Ananda in Sanskrit means happiness.
Yeah, exactly. In that same case, Priya also has two definitions. One is happiness, second is limitless. Ananda has one, happiness, and second, limitless, without limitation. That means nothing is restricted. It has no second. That's all limitlessness means. It has no second. Advaita. So Ananda is actually Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Anantam is, right, without bound, limitless. Okay, so it's actually also Advaita or Anantam. The person doesn't relate with the word limitless, and yet they relate with the word happiness. Then the question is, what is the source of happiness? When someone feels happy, what is the real source of that? Let's take it step by step. How about we do something else? See, what about time is a source of happiness? So that means, every single time you have like 5:50 p.m., in that moment you got happiness, right? So it can't be time. Suppose it's a place, right? So what place do you want to give happiness? Suppose it's the beach. So this means on one hand, I'm standing on the concrete. The moment I put my bare feet on the sand, instantly big smile, right? So it's not like that. So it can't be the time, it can't be the place. What about the mind? The mind is, let's get a little bit more tricky. Your mind is a source of happiness. Well, you always have your mind, so you should always have access to happiness, right? Because, I'm talking about this source. And if you have your mind with you, you should be able to tap into happiness right now.
It's always changing.
Yeah, exactly. And the mind's nature is to change. So even if you do have happiness, then it's gone like that. Because the mind always changes according to the environment in which it's in. Forms are the source of happiness, objects. If it really is the source of happiness, then the moment, suppose this makes me happy, then instantly everyone should have a big smile on their face, right? Because this is the source of happiness. Yeah, now what? Yeah, this is a tricky one, right? Now love. Love is a source of happiness. What kind of love are we talking about? When I'm with a person, they cause me to feel that I don't need anyone else in this moment. They take away the insistent wanter, the insistent complainer, the insistent inadequate person. Or should I say the persistent inadequate person, the persistent critical critic, the persistent small, inadequate, worthless person. They take away that voice of smallness, because when they're here, they please me. I feel complete. And in that moment, when I feel that happiness around them, what happens? That wanter is temporarily resolved. The wanter of how things should be and shouldn't be. That wanter, that narrative that always has a rule how things need to look like, how things are not to look like, how things need to be said to me, how I want to be treated, how I don't want to be treated, how you need to look at me so that I can feel like I belong and I'm loved. That wanter is temporarily resolved. And what happens then? I am happy. Now, in that happiness, is there something that you want while you're happy? Is there a sense of I want something else when you're happy?
It's absence. It's absence of desire.
Absence of the wanter who has desires.
Yeah.
Therefore, not only absence of desire, but also absence of the wanter onto whom desires are attached.
Yeah.
So that person or that little pramata or that ahamkara temporarily resolves. And therefore I experience fullness. And in that fullness, there is no sense of otherness. And therefore happiness gives you a glimpse into your priyam, into your ananda, into your limitless nature. And it's so pleasing to have no sense of otherness that we want to have it one more time. Why is it so pleasing? Because it's your nature. No sense of otherness. You always move towards your nature. Therefore, what can we establish? Your nature is one without a second. That one who is full, that one who is complete, that one who is whole. Therefore, even happiness is a tool to help us gain access, a glimpse. It is experiential fullness, by the way. It is experiential fullness. But it's still a wonderful teaching tool to show your nature. Because in that moment, when you're happy, there's no sense of otherness. This thing that I wanted so much, in that moment, they don't exist for me. So really what I want to do is get rid of them. That's why you're pursuing things, just to get rid of it. That's why you're fulfilling desires, to get rid of those things that are bothering me, that are giving reality to the I sense. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.